That's Leslie.
That's Christy.
And we're going indie.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, it is Thanksgiving when this airs. We will be very honest. It is not Thanksgiving on the day of recording because we're not working today.
Wow. That's what we're going to talk about. But Christy, wait, I love your scrunchie.
Well, that would be because that's the one you gave me for Christmas a couple of years ago. So I hope you like it.
Thanks.
So yeah, you really should. It was your taste. Yes. But yes, we are going to talk about time boundaries today.
Okay.
Because they can disappear when you start. Well, generally when you work for yourself from home at all, but especially when you start indie publishing, like out the window. Like your working hours are from awake to asleep sometimes, and it can easily take over your life. So we are going to talk about how to put some boundaries around your time.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this today, hopefully it's because you're sitting on the couch and like there's a football game or the Macy's Day Parade going and you're scrolling on your phone. And that's why you're watching us, not because you're working. If you live in the US. If you don't live in the US, it's not Thanksgiving. So, happy Thursday.
Everybody can be thankful. But also, I think this applies to any major holiday. It doesn't matter what where you are, what your customs are, your traditions. Because I'm doing an Advent Bible study right now. And actually it did start in the very beginning of November. So looking forward to Christmas, I'm thinking about how am I going to set boundaries and also write, and what can I set expectations for how much I can write during the holidays, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yes, especially because for both of us, this is, the last Christmas one of our children is in the house, so you don't want to lose that Christmas before they graduate high school and go off to college and things, so that is in my head as well as I go into Thanksgiving and Christmas and things, of making sure that this one is very meaningful because in some ways it's the last for my eldest. So
yeah. Oh, well, I'm going to tell you this. I did tell somebody this the other day that has a kid who's a senior. Her oldest child's a senior as well. And she was like, "Oh, I used to love the time when they were off for extra time before a holiday." And the way their school calendars changed, she doesn't get that. And I was like, "Oh, guess what? In college, they come home 2 weeks before. They say extra. You get extra time. So it's actually better."
So that's nice. Yes. But let's talk about some time boundaries, because there are things you need to do, not even just around a holiday or something like that, or vacation, but just in your day-to-day life. It can take over all of your time. If you let it, it can take over all of your thinking time, all your power, all your everything. One of the things I had to do was move my office. I had to move my office a few years ago, and this was back when I was still traditional, because my bedroom is one of those giant rooms that's supposed to be a bedroom sitting room combo, whatever. My home, the owner suite in my house would make a New York City apartment person cry. It's so big.
Exactly.
And so originally when we had moved in, we had kind of made half of it the bedroom and half of it an office, because it was convenient and the size was there. But I am in the basement now because I had to get that working space out of my living space. And so I would say one thing is you've got to somehow separate working space from living space.
Yeah, for sure.
Is one of the ways to set a boundary, so that there's a conscious, oh, I'm going to go work, or I'm not working now, I'm home. Because especially if you work at home and your desk is the dining room table, you've got to make a conscious shift from I'm working to I'm now being home, being a parent, being a wife, being just a friend, being whatever that you are. You've got to make that shift. You can't live in that space constantly of your workspace.
Yeah. And I would say this, just because you might not have a whole extra room. I'm very blessed to have a whole extra room for my office, although it is a storage room for some things and other stuff. But it is, but years ago, I had we were having some people stay in our spare room because they had like lost their house to a flood and a hurricane, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so I turned my closet like into an office space, like the back of the closet. I just moved everything out and I turned a bookshelf sideways, and it was like a really like small, like you couldn't move in it, that you could sit down and work, and I could still get that space. So I mean, I know like I've seen like I think Pepper Basham has like a tiny corner in this one room, but it's like her office space. And I think you just need to have that designated area to really set that physical and emotional boundary for your writing.
Yes. And I think one of the things I do like, especially as a lot more people move to laptops instead of desktop computers, is I've seen a lot of desks where you can close it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can set the computer inside, you can close it. And I think anything like that, something that you can symbolically remove the working area from your living area, I think that helps you set a time boundary. And so I think like right now on Thanksgiving, I have deliberately chosen, hopefully, this is the plan, obviously, since we're pre recording this. My plan is not to even take my laptop with me, so that it's not an option
Mm-hmm.
to be like, I'm just going to go do a little bit of work. And so I would say, like, we called this time boundaries, but I think we've actually called it a place boundary. Like, it's a, you know, have those places where you work and then places where you live, and really try to separate them, even if your place is small.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that that's like when you're writing, like when I'm writing, if I take off too many days, it's hard for me to get back. So, like one Christmas, I was like, I'm just gonna only write 500 words, and so
Mhm.
that didn't like I just said when I sit down for like 45 minutes, I'm only gonna write for this little bit of time, and that way I don't like lose it all, but it's still working. I'm still doing that, but I would say the other place that I think you get sucked in these kinds of places into the time is if you're doing any kind of social media and marketing stuff and you'll have
Oh
just
yeah.
written a book. I mean, so it's like hard not to
Yes.
get on
So
there and be like,
hopefully I'll have everything
book over
scheduled.
Thanksgiving.
I'm gonna try to have everything scheduled so that I don't have to, do a lot. But yeah, you can get sucked into. I had to really put a limit on my phone, like a hard limit that like reports to my husband of how much time did I spend on Instagram that day, because I can get to scrolling and I can call it research and justify it. But like, it just sucks in your time. So like I think putting those boundaries as far as what you have in front of you, whether it's social media, whether it's your computer, whether it's your notes, just not having it in front of you, staring you in the face, can help you set some of those boundaries in your life.
Yeah. So okay, so I know there's some. Did you have do you have one of those like apps on your phone for that setting that boundary? Like that what or do you just
So I just use the timer,
mhm.
the digital wellness timer. I have a Samsung, and there's a section in here called digital wellness that'll let you set a time limit for how long an app can run a day. Like you can only have it run 30 minutes, an
Right.
hour, whatever a day, um, to do that. Yeah.
So that's a great tip for everybody out there. Go and find an app, or if you are like Christy and me and have a Samsung, which I didn't know there's this thing on it. So
Yes.
I'm gonna
Yes.
look.
Digital wellness. There is also an app that I really like called Forest that I do have, that you can set it to only allow certain apps, and you can put like, I'm going to go into work mode, or I'm going into family mode, whatever. And you can tell it like, all of this is blocked for the next 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you tell it to. And it grows a virtual tree while you're going. And if you open one of those apps and you bypass it and say, no, I'm going to open this app, it kills your tree.
That's handy.
So it's a little cartoon tree, but I don't want to kill it. So I
Okay,
do have that.
so
It's called
definitely
Forest.
Christy will put the link for that in the
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
caption. Okay. So yeah. So
No.
tell
So
us
yes. So happy Thanksgiving.
yes.
Um, go forward and don't work.
Yay. Or much.
And we'll see you guys Tuesday.